Motivation is not a feeling or a thought. It's a process. And surprisingly, its explanation lies within some complex neuroscience. But in order to properly understand what motivation is and how we can train our minds to channel it, we need to start by explaining the reward system. The reward system involves different structures in the brain that respond to a stimulus, which is actually a key word. A stimulus is an experience or event that in this case, you expect to get something out of. Like for example, you come into work every day because you expect to get your paycheck. So let's dive a little deeper into this. One of the most vital elements to the reward system is dopamine, which you may have heard of. It's a neurotransmitter that's released when an individual is expecting to receive a reward. And that's the key word here, reward. Here's how the process of dopamine release goes. First, dopamine is released in the middle of the brain, in an area called the ventral tegmental area. And in the future, I'm going to abbreviate it and call it the VTA. And in a matter of seconds, once it's released, dopamine begins down its journey through the brain. The specific journey that I'd like to talk about today is its journey down the mesolimbic pathway, where it ends up at a region of the brain called the nucleus accumbens. And here is where all the magic happens. When dopamine levels increase in this region, different structures, including the nucleus accumbens, become activated. And that's all it is. In purely scientific terms, this increase in dopamine levels is called motivation. And you can think of motivation like a force. What it does is it drives the body to carry out a specific behavior so that you can achieve a certain reward. Now, here's a few things you should keep in mind. 1. When dopamine is being released from the VTA, it can also enter two other important parts of the brain, the hippocampus and the amygdala. You may have also heard of them, but for now, there's only one basic fact you need to know. It's that the hippocampus is responsible for producing/storing your memories, and the amygdala is responsible for processing your emotions. And the second fact you should know is that motivation can be created for some of the smallest and some of the most demanding tasks, because its creation only depends on whether you want to complete a task or not, right? Even if the task is really simple, it's possible that you don't have any motivation to do it because you don't see any desirable reward. So in summary, when you're responding to a stimulus, for example, your mom tells you to clean the dishes and you expect that you'll receive some allowance if you do, your dopamine levels in the nucleus accumbens will increase and continue increasing as you are cleaning the dishes. Your motivation to keep on going is created because of this dopamine release, and when you actually receive the reward that you want, two things will happen. A, the amygdala will begin to perceive an emotion of happiness and pleasure, simply because of the dopamine, and B, the hippocampus will log the experience of cleaning the dishes as a rewarding, enjoyable memory. But that's only if you actually get the allowance. So guys, this entire process occurs within a matter of seconds, and the most important thing is that it's constantly repeated. You get rewarded by something once, and your brain turns on a light bulb. It thinks to itself, next time we must behave the same way so that we can achieve the same reward. And that's what motivation is. It's the desire to achieve a reward through a certain behavior. So far, I've told you the pure science behind this process. I'll now create a real-life scenario for you and even show you a few ways in which you can use your understanding of the reward system to improve your daily life. So let's make something up. Let's say you're walking down the street and you see a flyer that says missing cat at the top, and at the bottom you see the words reward of $1,000. I bet you already know what happens next. Your brain begins to process how, if you were to find the cat, you would get an extremely desirable and unusually high reward of $1,000, and instantly at that moment, your dopamine levels begin to rise. You now have a motivation to start searching for that cat, and once you actually deliver the cat to the owner, there are two possible cases that could happen. Case A is you successfully receiving the reward, and this experience being logged as an enjoyable memory, meaning you do it again in the future. Case B is you getting scammed and not actually receiving the reward, in which case the exact opposite of case A happens. This experience is logged as a disappointing, bad memory, and guess what? Dopamine release is actually inhibited, and your dopamine levels in the nucleus accumbens will go down. So officially, you've been demotivated. Now, of course, it isn't always this simple, and a lot of factors influence motivation, especially motivation to change, which is why frequent smokers don't stop smoking even after knowing the negative consequences of possibly having lung cancer. Motivation is a building process. So now, the next question is, how can you use your newfound understanding of the reward system to your advantage? How can you train your dopamine release to boost your motivation? Here are a few simple but crucial steps. Step 1. Set small, achievable goals. As we already established, when the brain expects that it will acquire a reward, your motivation to behave in some way to actually receive that reward will increase. But when you set tiring, long-term goals, even if you can achieve them, your brain knows that you'll have to work a lot harder for a reward that will take a lot longer to acquire, and therefore you lose your motivation. So if you set incremental, short goals, your brain will end up achieving the reward that it desires for a minimum work input, and you can continue to maintain high motivation levels until you actually reach your ultimate aim. Step 2. Change the way that you look at your tasks and your goals. Take work that you may have been asked to do or believe that you were forced to do and turn it into something that you want to accomplish for yourself. In other words, create your own motivation by giving a reward to tasks that seem unnecessary or tiring or pointless. For example, you have a major exam the next day that you really don't want to study for. A simple solution is to provide yourself with short, incremental rewards. For every 20 minutes you study, you can take a sweet. Not only do milestones like this help your brain see a desirable reward for a relatively simple task, but sugar is also a major trigger for dopamine release, which we will get into in a future episode. It's almost like you're double downing on the dopamine. Step 3. Focus on how good you'll feel once you finish your task or goal. Result-driven focus has been proven to be a major source of motivation in humans, and it can be a great feeling to simply think about that A+ on your report card or the paycheck in your hands at the end of the week. Step 4. Incorporate foods packed with dopamine in your daily diet. As I mentioned, sugar contributes to dopamine release, so for example, incorporating fruits and nuts that are packed with natural sugar will improve your overall attitude and enthusiasm towards your work. Foods with lots of natural probiotics are also proven to increase dopamine production, so make sure to pick up some yogurt on your next grocery trip. So in conclusion, in this episode we covered the neuroscience behind motivation by talking about the reward system, how it works in common day-to-day activities, and lastly, ways you can use your understanding of the reward system to boost your overall motivation. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to our channel and drop us a comment down below on what future neuroscience topics you would like me to cover. See you in the next one!